So this panel is on the future of coffee, where we're going, and what it's going to take to get us there. So I'm going to start us off with having us all just introduce ourselves. I already have, so I'm just going to pass this down the line.
Hi, I'm Umeko, and my pronouns are she or they. Oh, I work for Sudden Coffee.
I'm Dani Goot. My pronouns are she and her, and I work for Bellwether Coffee.
Hi, I'm Izzy. My pronouns are they and them, and I work at Wrecking Ball Coffee.
Hello, my name is Paba. My pronouns are she and her, and I am formerly of Alchemy Collective.
Hi, my name is Rosi. My pronouns are she and her, and I work for Royal Coffee.
So I'm just going to start us off with kind of an open-ended question. Where do you all see specialty coffee 5 years from now, and where do you want to see it? Which I know might be two different things. So we can go in order, or you can just grab mics from each other. It's all good. I just want this to be a conversation and hear what you all have to say.
So I think we all, I'm sure, are aware that the market is expanding, and specialty coffee is reaching new audiences through RTD products are just huge right now. We have stuff like specialty instant coffee. What the heck? And along with that, there are a lot of concerns that I think are really justified about selling out, and what does that mean? And are we losing something that's precious? Are our values being diluted? So I think this is a really great opportunity for us to really center in our values. The value proposition of specialty coffee, as I understand it, is that we sell really good coffee and we pay a higher price for it than the C market price, right? So if we're thinking about expanding that seems okay. Let's go with that, right? I think this is a really great opportunity for us to examine how we can see this expansion and continue to hold our values and continue to develop our values and align ourselves more and more with those values.
I focus more on where I'd want it to be rather than where I think it'll be, and I hope that is the same thing. So I have a bunch of notes here, so sorry, I'm going to be reading off these notes. I'd like to see coffee quality also include social environmental aspects a lot more than it has in the past. We look at coffee and coffee quality and talk about the score of the coffee, and there's no social aspects in that whatsoever when it comes to scoring these coffees. So I would like to see a lot more involvement in our communities locally and outside, all over the supply chain, with more insight on that. Let's see. I'd like to see more of our integration with baristas and coffee roasters and sharing knowledge. Right now, it seems like the paradigm is kind of split into these two different groups, which I think, of course, you could have a focus, but I'd like to see a lot more integration and education with each other. That's that, and also more of these type of DIY community events. We have been going again through a paradigm that's pretty much was dictating how coffee was going. It was run through us, but I can see a big benefit in us doing this ourselves and pulling our community together locally to make a lot more of these locally and throughout where we live in different areas, and then have a bigger space where we could all come together and share with each other. So basically, I feel like I'd like to see it be more community oriented, and also, of course, having a delicious cup of coffee. But
I mean, similar to what you're saying, Dani, feel like we've advanced so much in quality too, and will continue to. And I would love to see more community events held. I feel like this is a great example. BACC events is a great progress as well. But also moving away from just quality and also focusing on really hard topics like customer service and interdepartment issues that are usually run by HR programs and don't really support a lot of us who are in front of the house retail positions. And I feel like I've learned the most from talking to people in other companies and getting together and hanging out and being like, hey, I'm having this issue. I don't know what to do about it. I don't feel comfortable going to HR. I don't feel comfortable going to my manager. Like, can we talk about this? And I really appreciate BACC pushing past just doing competition stuff, but also doing outreach and community-focused oriented programs. So I'm looking forward to more events that kind of talk about more of the coffee industry and not just the hard skills of competing, technical issues, quality.
Thinking about like third wave coffee, and I'm sure we all do. We look at it a lot. We think about like where is it going, like because it does look like larger corporations are buying coffee companies, and smaller corporations. I mean, smaller coffee companies are becoming larger, and it's interesting to look at because there's that concern that the care won't be there, and this kind of almost reflected in what we're doing right now, where we have there's a smaller localized gathering right now that isn't so widespread, and so there's more care because it's about our community, which is really interesting. It's almost kind of reflective of why third wave coffee I think might have started in the first place. We're looking at coffee and being like, we want it to be there to be more care about where we're getting it from and about how it is at farmer level, and when the people are making it, the amount of care that there is, and if it does get bigger, like how do we preserve that? And there's a lot of concerns of any industry that grows big, like how do you preserve that? And I mean, some of it is going to become corporatized, and some of there's going to be less care, and it's going to just look like third wave coffee, and it's going to lose the essence of it, and it'll just be expensive coffee. But I think that if we could, we have the power to steer it in a lot of ways. We work in this industry, and there's so many ways to do that. Holding events like this, more education, more inclusivity. So expanding the reach of where that education goes. I think there's been talk. I mean, I've definitely thought about this before about how those skills are only accessible to certain people. Same with roasting, only accessible to certain people. And so how do we widen that? How do we actually find people in our own communities to work in coffee, in places where we are having our coffee companies? And also just the other aspects of it, like the other parts of coffee, like business, something like that. Why, like how we could talk about that amongst each other and have a better sense of how we can serve the people who work in coffee, and how we ourselves who are on the ground level can ask for what we need, or shift what is already in the workplace. So that's sorry.
Yeah, where do I see the industry in 5 years? I mean, I've only been around for 4 years, but I get excited every time I talk to producers in all different countries, and it's either like they're creating a new line, or they expanded their crops, or they got new groups of suppliers, or they're having an event, or they're having the Cup of Excellence, and it's like in the past 5 years, there's about 15 specialty coffee shops in Lima, in Peru, where I'm from. And it's so exciting that like the language that we have for quality and for flavor, it's going to expand with people from all these different countries coming into the specialty industry at a roasting level and at a barista level. And where do I want to see these? I don't want to see like copycats of brands from the US in our countries. Like I would like to be representative of the culture and the richness of each country, and like have that difference nurture everyone in the industry. So where would I like to see coffee grow is I would like to see stronger relationships between the consumers, the roasters, and the producers, and have it be more of a same level relationship, like a negotiation that's one-to-one, and that starts as an equal, so then we can all prosper in the industry. Because right now, with the prices of coffee and green, a lot of people are not really making their cost of production, which is sad. And I'm generalizing, of course.
Something that where our industry is headed for sure is with technology, and how technology has been used already and is growing in what we do. You've used some of these tools, but how can we make these tools work to help build and get closer to producers? How can we use technology to build our community? And also another thing that is really important is, we use this word called sustainability, and it's so vague and all over the place. I would like for us to really come together and work really hard on what that means and what are the important parts of sustainability in coffee to us, and focus on that. Yep, that's all I got.
That's great. So I think you all have definitely led the way for this, but kind of the next thing I want to talk about is what do you think it will take to get us there? What's going to need to happen within the next 5 years to, actually achieve those goals? So also you all can feel free to go in order or just pass them around and jump. It's all you.
I think, things that we, can you hear me? I think the things that we can do in the next, it's very hard to know. 5 years does seem like a long time to me, but probably not that long actually. Things will have changed quite a bit. Is to, I guess I talked about this a little bit already, but education, which I do think is going to be really important. And I think that I have experience in a cooperative business model actually, and it's very different. And I think that there's a lot of flaws in it, but there's some things that were very interesting to me that I learned, and I think would be useful for everyone else working in the industry, which are things like how hard it is to do HR, how hard it is to schedule someone or do payroll. It's those things are actually, there's a lot of work that goes into those things. How, someone has to keep on track of all of our taxes and make sure that those are paid on time. And dealing with, all of the licensing that you need to do and the insurance that you need to have. To actually run a business, I think we don't even see those things, and likewise, we also have a really strong disconnect, I think, even on a barista level, even though we're kind of aware, oh yeah, it's great that we're supporting things at production level, what that actually means, what the difference between a farmer who actually gets paid for their coffee at a rate that is sustainable. Sustainable is in they can actually live, feed themselves and take care of their children and send them to school, and so just education on all those aspects and show and try to bring that also to the consumers. So seeing how making that information more accessible to everybody who walks into a coffee shop. just even the understanding of what it takes to run that business, or that understanding of what it takes for someone to grow those beans is gonna make someone want to support Third Wave Coffee, and maybe hopefully hold those values and keep that what it means to be Third Wave. I don't know if I'm making myself super clear actually, but doing great. Sorry.
I think a lot of people need to get paid more. There are a lot of people in all different areas of the supply chain that need to get paid more. And it's a really serious thing. And I think like on the side of the industry where I have worked, there's a lot of like, oh, well, you just work in coffee because you're passionate about it and it's not about the money, and it's like, well, but I want to go to the doctor. Like, yeah. And then, like Rosie was saying, there are so many people who are growing coffee. They're not meeting their cost of production. And this is something that like in our industry, because we think of it as like, this is about passion and this is about quality and like good, whatever. And then we're like, the money is like, oh, yeah. It's like, no, dude, like people need to go to the doctor. And we need to be really serious about that. And as we are growing and as we are expanding as an industry, I think that the tension comes from the cases where there is this growth and this expansion happening, and the companies that are seeing this growth, they have a responsibility. I think if you are running a company, you have a responsibility to your employees and to the people in your supply chain. And when your employees and the people in your supply chain are not benefiting from the growth of your company, that's selling out. That's where the problem is. Growth is not inherently problematic. It's growth that benefits only a couple people, while the people that are still hurting just like keep on hurting. So yeah, and I think we just need to be really real about that. Like if you have a coffee company and you're like, oh no, like my baristas like are doing fine because they get tips, and it's like if you haven't done like a cost of living analysis in your city, and if you haven't actually sat down and calculated like how much money your baristas are taking home after taxes, even including your tips, which the cash tips are always like, oh, you guys get cash tips, like if you haven't done that, then I don't think you can say yet like, oh, my baristas are doing fine. So yeah, I think, just like people need to get paid more. That starts with being really real about it. And then just like get some spreadsheets out and like try to like move some numbers around there, like see what if you're not there yet, like you're not there yet, but at least hold that as your goal, like that you need to be there.
If I could add one thing to that, I think that going along with that is, and quite possibly one of you will have this to say too, but we need more transparency, because if the money just isn't there, we all need to know that. We'll all be very forgiving of that. But a lot of the time, the solution is there. It's just that the few people looking at it, the only people who have access to it, can't see it. And there's a lot more brains in your company or in your, on your farm than just the people who have access to those numbers.
Totally agree with all that. Well said. Yeah, total. To talk to that as well. We need to start putting people first. That's what's really important. You start putting people first, you start seeing a lot more positive change in our industry. You start seeing, employee retention. You start seeing happier people. You start seeing your business grow. Uh-oh. Trouble now. Sorry. Somebody else want to say something real quick before I get my notes? Oh, wait, here we go. Sorry. You just put it on hold. And the other thing I wanted to mention, too, was that a lot of this change has already started to happen. And it has been happening slowly. a lot more now than I've noticed when issues arise and problems happen. Our community gets, has crisis. We start to see people stand up and do something about it. And I think that's what's really going to take, what it's going to take to really get stuff done. I've had to do some outreach with people who are starting their own types of organizations in coffee to help promote baristas and to help promote coffee roasters and gender initiatives and all different types of things that are happening right now. Safety of the workplace. There's all these really great organizations that are starting grassroots. This is how we're going to change it. Like, we have to do it. We can't wait around for anyone else to do it. And being here at these types of events is also something that's really positive in making change, because we could all take away something from what everyone up here has to say, and I'm sure you all have something to say yourself about all this too. Yeah. Anyone else?
Sorry. I appreciate everybody kind of covering a lot of what I was going to say already. I think there's just like a lot of basic needs that need to be met, and it's really slowing down us progressing into more complex issues, like being paid and like knowing basic management skills and having that information, if not be free, at a really affordable price. And it sucks, like, having to watch a lot of people who want to start up companies struggling through all of those same issues that everybody else has been through, and then finding out like, oh, like everybody else has already been through it, like why didn't I reach out? Or like, there's not really a venue until you're like knee deep in problems. Do you ever find the people who've already figured it out? And it's, and that's the only thing I see, like the local communities getting together and, well, on the micro level, also talking about just getting the basic stuff figured out, or somebody who has figured out those issues, sharing it and mentoring, but also just like being able to give information and not be scared of like the competition that creates of another successful business. And then being able to be like, okay, now we can talk about really hard stuff and maybe pay somebody to come help us like figure out these issues.
Yeah, definitely in businesses that are already set up, people that have power to hire and do HR, and we all do, right, to face our own biases, to be more inclusive. It is hard, and it's hard work because there's a lot of ignorance. So especially people that are in those positions of powers need to make that extra step, take that responsibility, do that effort. So then more people will feel safe and come into the industry and develop careers there. Like if people are not facing their own biases and they're not welcoming, then it's just gonna keep happening that people feel unwelcome or face barriers professionally that they shouldn't have to. Yeah, and I would like to really see more of what's already happening, like researching cost of production, in gender, at origin level. Yeah.
All right, so what do y'all think is the biggest hurdle that's preventing us from getting where we're going?
I'm going to say that we're the biggest hurdle. That our fear of change, of taking chances, of doing things that haven't been done before, the fear that we have of changing a paradigm that's been running for so long, accepting ways that have been happening for a long time, political, social, patriarchy, lack of accountability for a lot of people. is really limiting us from, these are our hurdles, it's ourselves. Like, so we need to really like, this is why our community is so important, because we could band together and support each other and build something great. This has happened already. This is how organizations get started. But now we're in a new time where we have a lot different difficulties. There's a lot more political problems happening. We're seeing these right now, and we get upset about them. And I think when you get upset about something, you're up in arms. But what's really a lot more helpful is to actually get up and do something about it, rather than just complain about it. Now, recently I was part of an organization that had asked me to help make positive change. I elected out of that and decided to do that with my community on a more local level, which I find to be a lot more helpful and can benefit where we live and all of you as a whole a lot better than a bigger organization or something like that. I can see that these changes have to come from us, like individually. I know it's like really like cliche, but like it's got to come from us individually, and we have to look at ourselves and again become accountable for what we do, and why are we doing this anyway? Why are we in specialty coffee? Why we talk the talk, but we need to start walking that and supporting each other. So I really think that we're our own biggest hurdle.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there's be true to what you say on paper, right? Like those code of conducts, like it was interesting to see so many people disappointed of their leaders at the last town meeting. Interesting because I never felt like those were my leaders. Like I never, but you know, like it's fine because I'm an immigrant, so it's like I'm an outsider in a way. I'm just getting used to, so a lot of things are foreign for me. But people were really disappointed. They had belief what was written. And when the response is like, oh, we didn't think of that, like we had no idea. It's just like the day after the elections, the presidential elections last year. It's like, of course these people are not going to think about it because it's not their experience, it's not their situation, it's not their close friend situation, or their values are not the same as yours. So I think the biggest hurdle is that the people that we admire in the industry might not be holding the same values we want to push forward as an industry. So this year has been really interesting for me, having those uncomfortable conversations, asking questions, accepting that that I'm ignorant about this subject and I want to know more, and not just asking the person that's there, but also like going to the internet, doing some research, reading some books. And in sustainability, for example, it's the biggest hurdle is that we're always trying new things in sustainability. I'm making generalizations, of course, but it's like we're trying to justify the value of the landscape and clean water and access to food, and just trying to justify the economic value of basic things. And it's not that's why sustainability and capitalism people try to say they go hand by hand, but if it's really I need to do conservation in the rainforest, for example, you can only justify it by doing quantifying the carbon that can be fixed. Really, that's the only unless you can put a number of it, it doesn't have a value. And that's where I think a lot of the cultures that are already people that have been doing activism for years and years and centuries, that have been resistant patriarchy and capitalism and neoliberalism, we have so much to learn from them. And a lot of those people are involved in the coffee industry. So many indigenous cultures in America, in Central and South America. Those values are there. We can learn so much from them. We can have those conversations and learn from each other.
I think that there's a couple different things that are in our way in like changing the coffee industry. One of them is that we are not the people who are running the SCA. Like in certain ways, there's not representation. There aren't people who are queer. There aren't people who are women. There aren't people of color. There aren't trans people. We're not there. We're not represented. So, of course, when you have a specific, fairly small group of a type of person running an organization that actually represents such a wide range of people all over the world in a lot of ways, it isn't, they're not going to serve our needs. It just isn't going to happen. It's too outside of their range of like understanding, their experience. They've never had that experience, and maybe they've never even talked to us, in that way, and they don't understand what it feels like to be scared to go somewhere and compete because of how you look, or even how you don't look, but how you might or because you just don't agree with what that place stands for. I think that there's also this fear of like speaking. There's a fear of, at least for me as a femme identified person, I think I have a fear of sometimes I feel like I don't have anything to say. And often there's a lot of people who feel like they have a lot to say, but it's just because they have always been told by society that they have a lot to say. Doesn't actually mean that they have maybe that much to say or what they have to say is good, but there's other things that need to be heard. And so I think that is an issue. And I also think that there is the issue of like, it's really almost unsustainable to live in a place like the Bay Area right now. The wage to income gap the cost of living to the wage gap is really big. And I just see it all the time that how can you even care about coffee when you really don't make enough money to pay your rent? I know plenty of people who are my age who, live in their cars right now. And I'm shocked when I hear that. But are any of us really that far away from it if we're working in a service industry? Quite a few of us now are lucky enough to have moved maybe slightly higher into the coffee industry. But that doesn't mean that it's that much easier. We're living in a hard time to make change in a lot of ways. How do we keep how do I explain this? I guess how do you sustain the diversity and sustain the care when you can barely survive? I think what we're also it's gonna be. So yes, we do need to get paid more. We do, and also we're in a culture where people don't think that what you're doing is valuable enough to pay more, and so that's actually a much larger cultural issue, and I am not actually quite sure how we're going to get around that one.
So in every industry and every structure, there's power, and there are positions of power, and in our industry right now, there's a lot of conversation about the people who occupy those places of power, and feeling like the people who are occupying those positions of power are not making decisions that hold the best interest of the community in mind. And I think in addition to questioning the decision making of those power positions, I think we should be questioning the nature of those power positions and the nature of that power. I don't want to have those positions just turned over to, like different faces without that power becoming less centralized. I feel so tough to ever sustainably, as a community, feel represented and feel cared for when we just unquestionably are like, okay, yeah, those are the people in charge, And I think like events like this are a really positive, like really powerful step toward decentralizing that power. And we are breaking that down and we're saying, like when I started working in coffee 8 million years ago, it was like there was this handful of like men that they were like in charge and they were the authorities, and everything that they said, it was like, oh, well, like he said that, so, and he's like a legend. I think that like honestly, as like we have Twitter now, and and there just are more platforms for people to be heard, and we have people like RJ and Ellen who are putting together events like this where you don't have to like just wait around and hope that like the cool kids invite you to speak at Expo, like you can just share with your community in a way that's a lot more real and a lot more kind, I think, and a lot less like top down, like we're the authorities and here are my thoughts, So questioning, I think just like the nature of the power structures in our industry is like a really helpful thing, and we're well on our way, I think.
All right, so then I guess the last thing I want to focus on, we've talked somewhat about this, but what do you think that individuals can do to have the biggest impact on the future of coffee?
I have notes too. They're so helpful. I love stone fruit. I like Tootsie Rolls too. Tootsie Rolls are great. To be vocal about issues in your workplace, transparency, share issues that you're facing, and strategize. I mean, stuff I've already kind of talked about. To reach out to people who you feel comfortable talking to, and who do have a couple years on them in the industry, because they've probably run through a lot of the issues that you're facing now, and if not have the answer, they have an experience to share with you of what they went through, and even if it's a negative outcome, like this is a potential way of how this got solved or didn't get solved. And I think having that type of support is really important in just like having some type of handle of like what outcome might happen. And so I think being vocal about what you're going through is really important, and not letting yourself just like fight on your own and by yourself, even if you feel like you're the only person in your company who's like going through the issue and you can't talk to anybody about it. Like there's a lot of us who are more than welcome to share like our experiences, even if we don't have all the answers. Oh yeah, also if you have somebody in your workplace, I think one of the most helpful things that I was told was just like, if you are having a hard time talking to somebody who you're working on a project with and you don't feel comfortable with them, just go straight to their boss or their boss's boss to help talk to or strategize, like, hey, like this is an issue I'm having, like I need help with it, and I don't have access to resources with the person I'm in direct contact with. And that made me really nervous trying to like make that happen initially, because I was like, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But in the long run, you end up feeling like you're in trouble if you can't make a project happen. And so even if the people above you are really removed from your everyday work and your everyday challenges, it's really good to talk to them and make them interact with what you're working on and make them aware of, like, look, there's stuff that we're dealing with on my level, which might be a lower level, and I need you to be a part of that. I need you to, like, listen to what's going on within the company that you're also running or helping run. So talking to your coworkers, depending on whatever hierarchy level they're on, is really important. I think getting them involved as much as possible is important. And then I think, yeah, the Bay Area is an awesome place because there's so many resources, there's so many communities, and I think we could definitely pull and source from other communities that aren't just the coffee community. We were talking about wine earlier, which I think was really cool, and just like how similar it is, and the different industries that use very similar, I don't know, machines, and have, yes, and like have like health problems, or you know, learning how to like lift freaking bags in a healthy manner, but also maybe thinking outside the box of like what other industry is also lifting heavy things, you know, and not just like, and just like figuring that out and like getting together and talking about that, I think is important. It's key.
Yeah, and speaking out, it's good that you bring it up, because sometimes like you'll say something and you'll hear like crickets, like nothing, right? Like no one said anything back, and it's disillusioning. Is that it? Like it's disheartening. But the truth is that maybe when they hear for the third time from yourself again or someone else, it'll come through. They'll be like, oh, maybe this is something. Maybe we do need to like change our bathrooms, or like, you know, start doing, putting our pronouns in our names, or and forgive people too. I feel like after the elections, it was, and it just came down a few weeks ago. Like, I had put this like layer of protection between me and others because there was so much fear around and so much hate speech and violence. It just seemed like I just needed to protect myself and my loved ones. But like the truth is that if we try to speak to each other with more kindness and forgive ourselves for our own biases and others, because it's just ignorance, that we can nurture those connections. And as professionals, treating each other as equals, and being given the freedom to be yourself and feel safe and respected where you are, it's gonna just bring so much positive energy in the product developing, relationship creations, in the whole supply chain, like for everyone, in associations, industry associations, and everything. Yeah. So I've decided to love, because hate is too great of a burden to bear. Like, yeah, that's from Angela Davis. Angela Davis? Yeah, I heard it this morning on a video when I was preparing. So it's not like as individuals we can make our choice for purchase. Like, I know who my favorite roasters are, not only for the flavor of their coffee, but for what they stand for and how they do things, how they treat their employees. I also have an insight on the industry of what coffee they buy, so I like that. But as a group is where we really make the biggest impact. So events like this are great, because then we can promote each other and buy each other's products.
Definitely.
Yeah, 'cause money is power. It's our trade.
It's true. All right. Well, I'm going to open it up. Yeah, please.
No, it's good. I think so. For a lot of us who are queer and or who are women and or who are people of color, we are socialized into believing that we're not
qualified. And we get a lot of messages about like, oh, well, we're not ready yet to like do the things that we want to do or the things that we're passionate about. We're not ready yet to pursue our visions. And I think the most helpful thing for me has been to learn more and more to not fucking listen to people telling me that. When someone tells me that I am not qualified, and I just am. It's really it can be really tempting to want to just stay safe and be like, oh, you're right. I just need to do more research, and I'll do an internship, and it maybe in 2 years I'll be ready. But it's like you're ready now, and the world is really missing out, I think, on a lot of really great and really important work that we could be doing. And I think that for us as individuals, it's really like now we are ready to do what we need to do, what we want to do. This is it. Like we can do it now and we're ready. It's so helpful and so important to support each other in that too, you know? And when someone's like, yeah, I don't know, I don't think I'm ready. Like, I don't think I can go for that position. I don't think that like they would hire me. I don't think I'm qualified, you know, to say like, hey, like you're actually like, you're going to kill it. And if you don't get the position, like it's their loss and you can get a better one, you know, like, if we're kind of like as individuals oriented that way, and then within relationships and within communities oriented towards supporting each other in those ways, I think it's just like super powerful. Because like it's like we need new management, but like that's now. Like we're under new management now, you know? Us.
From my experience, and I'm sure plenty of you in this room know that marginalized people have to work 10 times harder to get things and to accomplish the same that marginalized people have. And these kind of groups and these types of get-togethers are the things that break that shit down. Like what we're doing, we're building our own and making our own way. And this is how we live in a paradigm that wants us not to be in it. And not to be powerful within it. Exactly. Thanks, OJ. So that's what I think what we can do as individuals, is support each other in these DIY spaces and these small groups. This is fantastic. Thanks everyone for coming, for sure. Yeah, feels really good to be in this room.